Okay, hello, welcome to my speech. Welcome, everyone. So, I had the chance to go to Hawaii for my spring break. So, Hawaii is made up of many different islands, and in its and Hawaii is its own culture, their own beliefs, and their own uniqueness. Hawaii is a state that is part of the 50 states, but when you really look at it, it does not really look like it's part of the rest of the states. When I went there, I noticed that the people follow these rules and these traditions that they had to honor when they for the kings and chiefs that they lived long before our time. So, in this speech, I will cover the history of Hawaii, the kings, the chiefs, and the government, and also the uniqueness of Hawaii. Starting with my first point, let's talk about the history of Hawaii. The state of Hawaii is formed by tiny little islands, which according to this article by the author named London, he said the islands were called the Hawaii, which is the precious islands. There are more Japanese people on Hawaii than there is Hawaiian people. The weather there in Hawaii is very unpredictable because of the incline that they tend to have. So when I went there, I took a tour where they told me that some days it will be sunny, but it will be also rainy, which is also really unusual. Since we talked about the history of Hawaii and the weather, let's shift our focus to the kings, the chiefs, and the government of Hawaii. Hawaii has all the kings and chiefs and the government, and they have to respect that, even though they have passed on. The first king that ruled all of the islands was King Kamehameha, which he is a very powerful ruler, and he wanted the most power. How the government works is that long ago, since Hawaii is all the way far from the mainland, which they call the United States, they need to make capital. So they form some kind of capital since it is far away from the mainland, which the author from that, he states, was from Kaufman. Now, we covered the kings, the chiefs, and the government. And we covered the history of Hawaii and also the weather of Hawaii. Now, let's shift our focus to our last point. Our last point is how Hawaii is unique for growing different types of plants. In this article by Johnston, he states that in 2010, Hawaii was known for its coffee, which I believe is true because I totally had a bunch of coffee when I went to Hawaii. So, according according to this article by Mozik, that the island of Maui is called the Switzerland because of its former beauty. Now, we have covered a lot of things of Hawaii. As I wrap up the speech, I just want to go over the main points. The main points that we covered are the history of Hawaii, the king's chiefs, and the government, and the uniqueness of Hawaii. So I hope that this speech will help you in booking a trip to Hawaii. Thank you for your time. Now, please excuse me as I work on my hula.